used to hearing like this word, for example. Never heard it before, so sorry if I say it wrong. Feel free to correct me in the comments. And Bethany at the Mount of Olives. They stopped there, and Jesus chose 2 of his followers to go on ahead. Go into that little town over there, he said. You will find a donkey tied up there and its young colt beside it. Untie them and bring them to me. If anyone questions what you are doing, just tell them that the Lord needs them, and they will let you take them. Jesus arranged this because the prophets had written that the king of Israel would ride into Jerusalem on a donkey or a donkey's colt. The 2 disciples did what Jesus instructed, and they came back with the 2 animals. They threw their own robes on the colt's back, and Jesus sat on it to ride into Jerusalem. As he came down the path, people lined both sides of the street. People took off their robes and cloaks and threw them onto the path ahead of him. So the colt walked on them. Other people ran to cut branches off of the palm trees near the road. They spread the palm branches on the road too. As Jesus rode by, the people shouted, "Praise God for the Son of David. Praise the one who comes in the name of the Lord. Praise God in the highest heaven." The whole city of Jerusalem knew that Jesus had arrived. The religious leaders heard the crowd cheering for him, and they were angry. "Make those people be quiet," they shouted. Jesus had an answer. If the people were quiet, then the stones along the road would burst into cheers. That comment made the religious leaders even angrier. The Last Supper. It was nearly time to celebrate the Passover feast. Jesus' disciples came to him and asked, "Where do you want us to go to prepare the Passover meal?" "Go into the city," Jesus said, "and you will see a man carrying a pitcher of water. Follow him to the house he enters. Go in after him and find the owner of the house. Tell him that the teacher says that his time has come. Tell him that I wish to eat the Passover meal with my friends at his house. He will lead you to a large upstairs room that is already set up for us. Prepare the supper there." 2 of Jesus' disciples went into the city, and everything happened just as Jesus said it would. They prepared the meal for everyone else. Later that evening, Jesus and the other disciples arrived. The 12 sat around him at a table, eating the supper. Jesus knew that it was about time for his life on earth to come to an end. Some very difficult things were going to happen to him. Judas Iscariot, I'm not sure if that's how you say his last name, but had already made a deal with the religious leaders to turn Jesus over to them. Jesus felt it was urgent now for his followers to understand him. So he got up from the table where they were all sitting, got a towel and a bowl of water, and began to wash the feet of each disciple. After he washed them, he dried them with the towel. When it was Peter's turn, Peter resisted. He said, "Why are you washing my feet? I know that you don't understand why I'm doing this right now, but you will someday," Jesus said. "No, I don't want you to wash my feet," Peter said, and he pulled his feet away from Jesus. "If I don't wash you, then you are not a part of my family," Jesus answered. "Then don't just wash my feet, wash my hands and my head too," Peter cried. "That isn't necessary," Jesus answered. "A person who has washed himself only needs his feet cleaned when coming inside. You are clean, but that isn't true of everyone in this room." Jesus knew that Judas had already agreed to betray him. When Jesus finished washing their feet, he said, "Do you understand why I did this? Since I have washed your feet, you should do the same for others. Go out and serve others. You will be blessed if you do this." The meal continued, and as they were talking, Jesus said, "The truth is that one of you sitting here with me will be the one who betrays me." The disciples were very upset that he would say such a thing, and even more upset that one of them would do it. "Is it me?" some asked. "Am I the one?" others questioned. Jesus said, "It is one of you who is eating with me now. I must die as the scripture said long ago, but it will be a terrible thing for the one who Jesus is arrested in the garden. Jesus and his closest friends, the disciples, walked up the Mount of Olives, and he led them to a garden called Gethsemane. Jesus said, "Sit here while I go and pray." He took Peter, James, and John, and they went a little way off from the others. Jesus knelt down and began to pray, and he was filled with agony and great distress. He said, "My very soul is crushed with grief. Stay here with me and watch." Then he walked a few steps away from them and fell face down on the ground. He prayed that, if it was at all possible, God might change the events that were going to happen that night. "My dear Father, I know that all things are possible with you. I want you to take away the suffering that is going to happen to me. Still, I want your will more than anything, not mine." Jesus went back to Peter, James, and John and found them sound asleep. He woke them up and said, "Couldn't you stay awake and watch with me for even 1 hour? Stay alert and pray. If you don't, temptation will overwhelm you because the spirit is willing, but the body is weak." Then Jesus went away from them and prayed again. When he came back, they were sleeping again. He woke them, and they didn't know what to say to him. Jesus went away a third time and prayed. He repeated his plea for God to take away the suffering that was coming, but he also stated again that he wanted God's will, not his own. He came back to his disciples, and once again they were sleeping. "Enough," he shouted. "It's too late. Now the time has come. The one who will betray me is here." Just then a mob of angry people came up carrying swords and clubs. Judas Iscariot, one of Jesus' disciples, was leading the group. Judas walked right up to Jesus and kissed him on the cheek. That was a signal. The soldiers had arranged with Judas to know which person was Jesus so they could arrest him. Jesus looked solemnly at Judas and said, "Go ahead and do what you have to do." Some of the soldiers grabbed Jesus and arrested him. Peter grabbed his sword and cut off one of the ears of a soldier. "Put your sword away," Jesus said. "This is what my Father has for me to do." He touched the side of the soldier's face, and his ear was just fine again. Then he said, "Am I some dangerous criminal that you must come with swords and clubs to arrest me? I have been in the temple every day." "You could have arrested me there." Jesus' disciples were confused and frightened by these events, so they all ran away. Every one of them. Trial and denial. The soldiers led Jesus to the home of, I'm not sure how to say that. The high priest, teachers, and religious leaders gathered there for Jesus' immediate trial. Peter followed along behind the crowd. He wanted to know what was happening but didn't want anyone to see him. He went inside and sat with the guards to see what was going to happen. Meanwhile, all the powerful priests and the high council were scurrying around to find witnesses to testify against Jesus. They wanted witnesses to tell lies about him so they could justify having him put to death. They found several who were willing to lie, but they couldn't find a testimony that would cause the death penalty. Some of the lies even contradicted each other. Finally, the priests found 2 men who said, "We heard this man declare that he could destroy the temple and then rebuild it in 3 days without using human hands." The high priest turned to Jesus and said, "What do you have to say for yourself? Are you going to answer these charges?" But Jesus remained silent. The high priest got angry and demanded, "I insist that you tell us whether you are the Messiah, the Son of the living God." "I am. You will one day see me sitting at God's right hand in the place of power and coming on the clouds of heaven," Jesus said. That was all the high priest needed to hear. He tore his clothes to show how shocked he was. "We don't need any other witnesses," he said to the council. "You heard this blasphemy. What is your verdict?" They all voted to condemn Jesus to death. Then some of them walked up to Jesus and spit on him. They put a blindfold on him and hit him and shouted, "Hey, prophet, tell us who hit you that time." Meanwhile, Peter was below in the courtyard of the house. He was warming his hands at the fire when a girl who worked for the high priest noticed him. She stared at him for a few minutes and then said, "I recognize you. You were with Jesus before." "I was not," Peter said. "I don't even know what you are talking about." He left and went away from the girl. Later, he was out by the gate when another girl saw him and said, "This man was with Jesus. I saw him." "I don't even know that man," Peter shouted. A little later, some other people said to him, "You must be one of Jesus' followers because you have a Galilean accent." "I swear that I do not know him," Peter said. Just then he heard a rooster crow. Peter remembered that the previous day when he was saying, priests and the high council condemned Jesus to death, but they didn't have the final authority. He had to appear before, not sure how to say that either, the Roman governor, before the sentence could be carried out. "Are you the king of the Jews?" he asked Jesus. "Yes, what you say is true," Jesus answered. Then the room filled with the priests and religious leaders who hated him. They shouted accusations at him, but Jesus didn't respond to any of their accusations. He remained completely quiet. "Don't you hear what they are saying?" he asked. "Don't you have any response to their accusations?" But Jesus didn't say a word. It was the custom during the Passover celebration for the governor to release one prisoner whom the people chose to set free. They could choose any one they wanted. There was one famous prisoner that year named Barabbas. As the crowd around him grew larger and larger, he asked them, "Which prisoner do you want me to release for you this year? Do you want Barabbas or Jesus?" He knew that the religious leaders had condemned Jesus only because they were jealous of his popularity, and he thought the people might set him free. But the religious leaders and priests had planted the idea with the crowd to ask for him to be set free and for Jesus to be killed. So when the governor asked which prisoner they wanted freed, the crowd shouted, "I think that's Barabbas, but I don't know if that's how you say it or not. But if I free him, then what should I do with Jesus?" he asked. "Crucify him," the crowd shouted. "Why? What has he done?" he asked. "Crucify him, crucify him, crucify him." The shouts grew louder and louder. He saw that the situation was hopeless, so he called for a servant to bring him a bowl of water. Right in front of the crowd, he washed his hands and said, "I am innocent of this man's blood. Responsibility for his death is on your heads." The people shouted, "We'll take it, crucify him." So he released him and ordered that Jesus be beaten with a whip that had metal tied in the ends of it. Then he turned him over to the soldiers to be crucified. The soldiers stripped off Jesus' clothes and put a red robe on him. They made a crown out of thorny vines and put it on his head, and they made him hold a stick in his hand like a scepter. Then they bowed down in front of him and said, "Hail, King of the Jews." But they were just making fun of him. They spit on him and grabbed the stick out of his hand and beat him with it. Finally, they grew tired of doing this, so they put his own clothes back on him and led him out of the building to be crucified. They made Jesus carry the heavy crossbeam that would be a part of the cross on which he would die. He was weak because of the beatings, and he fell down under the weight of the cross. One of the soldiers grabbed a man from the crowd named Simon, and they made him carry Jesus' cross to the hill called Golgotha, where the crucifixion would take place. Jesus dies on the cross. About 9 o'clock in the morning, the soldiers led Jesus to Golgotha, where he was nailed to the cross. His cross was centered between the crosses of two thieves who were also being crucified that day. Before they put Jesus on the cross, the soldiers offered him some wine drugged with myrrh, which would have numbed his senses, but he refused it. They took off his clothes and threw dice to see which one of them would get to keep his robe. A sign was hung at the top of his cross that said, "This is Jesus, King of the Jews." People who came to watch him be killed shouted, "He saved other people, let him save himself. And go ahead, King of the Jews, save yourself." The criminal on one side him said, "You say you are the Messiah, okay, prove it by saving yourself and us too." But the criminal on the other side stopped those comments by saying, "Don't you even fear God when you are dying? You and I deserve to die for the bad things we have done, but this man has done nothing wrong." Then he turned to Jesus and said, "Jesus, remember me when you come to rule." Jesus said, "You will be with me this day in heaven." Jesus' mother was there with some other women watching all that was happening. Jesus saw her standing near one of his disciples, whom he loved very much. He looked at his mother and said, "Woman, he is your son." Then he turned to his disciple and said, "She is your mother now." By this time it was about noon. Even so, the sky grew very dark, and the whole land stayed dark until 3 in the afternoon. Jesus called out, my God, why have you forsaken me?" Then he shouted, "Father, into your hands I put my spirit." Then he died. Suddenly the thick veil that hung in the temple was torn apart from top to bottom. The earth shook like an earthquake, rocks split apart, and graves broke open. The captain of the guards, who was in charge of the crucifixion, saw what had happened. He said, "Surely this man was God's son." All of Jesus' friends who were watching the crucifixion went home with hearts filled with sadness. The Jewish leaders didn't want the bodies hanging on the crosses the next day because it was the Sabbath day. So they asked him to hurry up she asked him, "Sir, tell me where you have taken his body and I will go get him." "Mary," the man gently said. That's when she realized that it was Jesus. The women rushed back to town to tell Jesus' disciples that he was alive.